Ladies and gentlemen, friends and frenemies, brothers and sisters, welcome to episode 14 of the Simon Tefula Show. This week, I have an amazing lady, Izzy. She's doing amazing things. She's helping creatives and entrepreneurs get their ideas off the ground. Welcome to the show, Izzy.
Thank you.
I really appreciate your time for taking time out of your busy schedule to come. And I know you're not feeling quite well, but you've taken time to still come out in the cold winter. I really appreciate that. So many things to talk about. Where do we begin? So tell us a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? Where did you grow up?
Oh, okay. We're going right back then.
Yeah.
So my heritage is Ghanaian.
Okay,
So
cool.
My parents came to the UK from Ghana in 1986.
Amazing.
And settled in North London.
Cool.
Grew up, born and raised in North London.
Yeah.
Lived in London for most of my life, studied in Bristol, lived there afterwards, and returned to London maybe about a year ago.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What did you study at Bristol?
I studied politics.
Why politics?
So growing up in Tottenham was really interesting. So Tottenham is a place of major social deprivation.
Yes.
I had older siblings who maybe got into a little bit of trouble. It was the kind of area that a lot of people didn't feel much hope for.
Okay.
And at the time, because I didn't have any other points of reference, I thought the only way I was going to change things as I saw them was politics.
Amazing.
So I got into local politics. I joined my local youth council.
Amazing.
Stood for youth parliament. I interned with my local MP.
Lemmy? David
yeah.
Lemmy? Oh, wow. He's really outspoken. Isn't he? I love it.
I kind of spent time in parliament and studied politics. And then I got to my final year studying politics and realised I did not want to go into politics. I didn't want to be a politician.
Yeah.
And there was a lot more work that I could do in business in the private sector. So that's
cool.
where I am now.
Amazing. So you leave uni, you obviously moved back to London. How did you come up with, first of all, what is the name of the organisation around and how did you come up with that?
Yeah, so I run an organisation called Foundervine.
Okay.
We are a non-profit that helps people from minority backgrounds and young women start businesses. So we see ourselves as a pre-accelerator program. So you come to us where you know no one, you have no knowledge, you have no network, and we are your first port of call. And we started around sort of 5 people who all worked in professional services. So some of us were in management consulting, some of us in tech, all young black professionals who were noticing that a lot of young people who wanted to start businesses were coming to us and looking for mentoring and support. But often the challenges they face is that when they had an idea, they didn't actually know what to do with it and they knew no one had no knowledge. And the problem was more acute for young black and minority ethnic people and young women. And we realised that the challenges they faced were quite different as well. So we were dealing with confidence issues, we were dealing with a lack of community and support, as well as the subject of business modelling and kind of like building an advisory board and all of that stuff. So we hosted an event at KPMG, our first Founder Fest. And we had about 120 young black people.
That was really popular. It was everywhere. It was all over social media and the news as well.
Yeah, so it was an opportunity to bring the community together.
Amazing. Yeah.
Mostly, black speakers. And we realised that we needed to do something about it. And it was more than hosting events. And so we built Startup 54, which is a 54-hour startup building program.
I see, that's where the name comes from.
We get a cohort of 60 into corporate offices for a weekend, and they spend the weekend imagining, testing, building, and finally launching their startup on a Sunday.
Wow, that's incredible. I mean, we were speaking about this earlier. Like, one of the biggest challenges for founders from any background, really, but mainly for people from minority and disadvantaged backgrounds, is that there's so many accelerators and incubators out there that claim to support early stage entrepreneurs and startups, but actually they don't really do that. They don't help you get from 0 to 1, which is a very critical part of actually getting started. And what they really do support is founders or companies that have an MVP, already have a team, and have some sort of traction, already making progress, which is so frustrating for somebody that is, just starting off. So what you're doing is incredibly amazing, and it's obviously really, really needed in the community.
Yeah.
As I was explaining earlier, that it's really hard just to get something off the ground. It's so hard, and the thing I love about what you're doing is that it's a free program, right?
No, so we
Okay.
we charge a very small amount of money.
Okay,
So,
but still, it's a lot more accessible
it's
than.
a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
We subsidise each ticket by about £100.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So hold on, you obviously did politics. How did you get the business skills required to sort of put this together? Because obviously you said you had partners as well. You have people that you set this up with, right?
Yeah. So so after I left university, I worked at KPMG for 3.5 years, and I was working in the sort of people space, so consulting organisations, mostly government and financial services, on how they can actually build talent development programs and design effective learning experiences. So, over time, I realised that I was really passionate about learning. And in particular, contextualised learning. Too often we have a very one-size-fits-all approach to learning, and people learn in different ways.
Absolutely.
And what you said about a lot of incubators and accelerators not focusing on women and people of colour, it's not because they're not interested in that, it's because they simply do not have the expertise or the kind of, the inclusion aspect built into their model. So that's where we come in. I think a lot of the people who come on our programs, one of the first things they say is like, I literally have never been in a room with this many people who look like me, who come from the same background as me, and who have the same mindset as me. We make sure that our programs are very inclusive. We make sure we have prayer rooms. We make sure that we give people time for reflection, because we know that women founders in particular need that time built into the model. We don't use language like hack and fight and lots of kind of bro language that a lot of startup competitions use, because we want to make it feel as inclusive as possible. We do it on the weekend because a lot of people are working and they don't have time to spend a whole week on a program.
Of course.
We try to think about these things, and we really learn from feedback as well. And I think we've just got inclusion built into everything that we do, and you feel it when you come on one of our programs.
That's incredible. I mean, I cannot tell you the amount of events and spaces I've been into that use, I wouldn't say, very toxic language, in the sense that it's very like, hacking, and like it's all very like, the language is very, it's not accessible to a lot of people.
Exactly. I mean, the word hack is a good example. People, when I explain Startup 54, they're like, oh, so it's hack. And I'm like,
what is that?
No, it's not a hack. It's an entrepreneurship development program.
Exactly.
Because people associate hacks with coding. They associate hacks with deep tech. They associate hacks with something that they cannot do. On our programs, we invite people who come from very different backgrounds. So you can have creative skills, you can have project management skills, you can have, working in the charity sector. But then we invite people who are developers and have more technical backgrounds. We build multifunctional teams who all bring something to the table. It's not just the same guy.
Amazing. You touched upon something when you were speaking earlier about giving people confidence in that earlier stage. And this is something that's so critical. So I do some community workshops as well. And, I run personal development and entrepreneurial training skill sets, right? And one of the things I discovered is that a lot of people actually, for the most part, maybe have the experience to have some of the skills, but it really comes down to confidence. I was really surprised. Like, a lot of people just need someone to give them that authority and that permission to say,
validate
you're good enough, you can do this. And this is one of the reasons why I really love what you do, because you're actually giving people the confidence. You can't actually quantify that impact. That is incredible, because once someone has the confidence, they might not have the skills, but they'll still go on and find the resources around them, or become resourceful enough to to kind of then go on to do what they want to do. So you've touched upon this as well, like in terms of the people you take onto the program, what kind of, obviously people from diverse backgrounds, any kind of criteria you look for people to get onto the program, and how often do you run the program, by the way?
So we run the program quarterly. So we had the first program in May 2018 with EY.
Yeah.
And then we had the second one actually quite a while later, November 2018 with Pivotal.
Yeah.
And that's because we were doing other things in between.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so we have other programs like our summer gathering and our annual festival. And then we've got Startup 54, The Future of Finance, coming up next month with Monzo.
Amazing. Yeah.
And then we are running our first regional Startup 54 in June.
Oh, wow.
And I won't disclose the
Oh, yeah.
company
No worries,
yet
no worries.
until we
Yeah,
finalise,
of
but
course,
they're a
of
major
course,
tech company
Oh, wow.
who have a presence in Bristol. And so quarterly, and then next year we're going to be running a series all over the country, hopefully.
That is.
But
really
your question was around who we take onto the program.
Yeah.
So we really don't have a criteria. At this point, we are simply trying to understand who we're engaging with our programs. We've been talking a lot about whether to set a criteria, but we don't want to be exclusive.
Okay.
And we're realising that a lot of people, they may not have, deep tech experience, whatever it is, but they do bring different things to the table.
Yeah.
So this event is really interesting, the one coming up, because we've got, quite senior people at KPMG signed up.
Wow.
We've got participants who are coming from our sponsors. And we also have 16-year-olds who are studying economics at A-levels. So it's going to be a real interesting mix of people.
Yeah, that's incredible. Obviously, since you set this thing up, you must have learned a number of lessons, a bunch of things, right? What do you know now that you wish you'd known setting this up from the beginning?
So I think that when you are a social entrepreneur, you are doing it because you're really, really passionate about the subject. You're not really doing it because you're thinking about profit.
Yeah.
And what is really important to realise from the get-go is that you need to be thinking about that double bottom line, so your social impact and your profit. So I think one thing I wish I was more sort of conscious of at the beginning was the commercial aspects of what we're doing. We did a lot of things for free last year.
Yeah.
And I think that a big part of our work was building our brand, getting it out there, talking to as many people as possible. So that was okay. But when it came to our sort of larger events, I think we were a bit coy about asking for money.
Okay.
Now we're more kind of, we're a lot more confident about the value of our product. We don't see it as a CSR initiative. We see it as giving a corporate the opportunity to actually make a difference in the wider startup ecosystem, to build out their talent and actually become more entrepreneurial by giving their employees opportunities to support our work. So there's a really great value proposition there, and it's over time that I've become more confident in terms of voicing that. But at the beginning, it was very kind of stop and start. So
yeah, I completely agree. A lot of creatives and entrepreneurs in the beginning, we like undervalue the services or the value proposition we bring to the table because you're thinking, maybe you're not quite too sure how to kind of get yourself out there. But as soon as once you're established and it's clear, like with you, then you put it out there. Great. So tell me about the rest of the team. How do you guys balance the responsibilities around? Because you still have a regular day job, right?
I do, yes.
How do you guys do the balancing act?
Yeah, so it's, I think, so we often say that we're extremely well organised for a team that is, doing this completely off the side of their desk. All of us.
Are you all based in London?
We're all based in London.
Oh, great.
We all work full time.
Okay.
So we have regular team meetings weekly, either through Skype, sometimes over dinner at my house, but
cool.
We are also extremely self-sufficient and in terms of how we came together. So a mixture of ways. Two of my team I brought on as advisors because they were fairly senior in their roles. And they just got it immediately and they were like, nah, we want to be more involved. So now they are directors.
Wow.
And the other members of my team actually reached out to us, to me. So after attending one of our events or kind of seeing our engagement on, the internet. So one of the criteria, I think, in terms of bringing people on is that they need to be extremely self-sufficient because... one, I don't really know is the answer to your question, and two, I'm happy for you to just get on with it and tell me how it goes. So I see my kind of role as very, leading from behind and kind of letting everyone get on with what they want to do. And I think it's made a huge impact in terms of our perception. I see a lot of young companies in which they are kind of like the company is the founder. And I hope that because of what we're doing, it doesn't feel like that with Foundervine. So, yeah.
Amazing. So let's talk more about the teams and the founders that come through your programs. Someone had an idea, right? What would you recommend? What would you advise them to do? Like 2 or 3 key things to get them started. Someone has a dream, they have a vision. You know, what do you say to them to kind of get them off the ground?
Yeah. So one of the first things I say is speak to someone who understands your industry.
Okay.
I think that a lot of people aren't very good at asking for mentorship. It's an even bigger problem in minority communities.
Why do you think that's the case, though?
Confidence.
Again,
access.
Confidence, yeah.
Access is a big one. And kind of how you've been brought up. I think a lot of it comes down to the fact that approaching someone senior can often be daunting and something that you're not necessarily taught to do when you're younger. So it takes someone who's quite extroverted. And if you've been brought up in a place of privilege, then it's easier for you to assume that you can do that. So, I mean, my first job at university, being KPMG, I took a very steep learning curve in terms of how to act in business. I think if I started off in an organisation which didn't give me as much access, didn't force me to grow as quickly, I wouldn't be as assertive as I am now, definitely. I am very, very good at asking people for their time. And I think what I say to a lot of the young people I coach is that you always need to go 90% of the way and be asking for 10%. So if you go in and you kind of, you're saying, oh, I've kind of got this idea, and someone will help you, but they need to know that you're willing to go all the way and that the next time you see them, you've actually implemented.
But you need to have skin in the game.
Exactly.
It's more appealing if you have skin in the game, you ask for help, somebody will help.
Exactly. So your mentor, just like your friends, just like your family, want you to be interesting and interested. So I'd say the first thing is being, finding a mentor, being confident about doing that. The second thing is actually just sort of taking that time to understand what your business model is. So the amount of times that I speak to young people, and I should say that my full-time job is that I run an incubator program at a university. So I do office hours every week with students who are starting businesses. Amazing. And, the most common thing is, hey, like, I've experienced this problem, so it's a problem, so I'm building a business about it. And then you get into it. So, who's your target audience? How big is the market? What are your customer channels? What's your revenue model? All of those things. And there's just no thought towards that. So it's kind of, and then I think what's also interesting is that a lot of people, particularly if you're a bit of a perfectionist, think you need to build out the product almost completely before you do any community engagement. And your community is everything. You need to be building that first. So I think there are lots of things that you can do to actually think through the model and what you're building and find a coach. Not a mentor, find a coach who actually understands how to help you refine that thinking.
What's the difference to you?
So a mentor is someone who has industry experience and knowledge that you're hoping to gather. So they can, hold your hand and kind of guide you into who you might need to be talking to and what you might need to know about your industry. But they're not coaches. They're not there to tell you how to build your business. A coach is there to help you refine that thinking. They may have absolutely no idea about your industry, or they might have if you're lucky, but they are there to just help you refine your thinking. They're there to challenge your thinking, to offer you guidance as opposed to advice. Yeah, so it's kind of that's kind of how I see the distinction. In my life, I have multiple mentors and one coach who is paid to help me kind of think through that and who's been invaluable in terms of my development. So I think that's really important. So we've got mentorship, we've got coaching and kind of thinking through that business modelling, and then we've got community. So Foundervine is an inclusive startup community. We have grown from 0 to around 2,000 people across our platforms who are engaged with our content in various ways. And it's so special when, particularly in our alumni community, which is currently on WhatsApp, when people say something like, I have no idea how to set up a social enterprise. Does anyone have any advice? And 10 people chime in. Or I've got this graphic that I built for my next event. I'm not really sure what it looks like. Has anyone got any advice? And then a designer chips in. So having that community is so important because it validates your thinking, and it also gives you people to bounce ideas off you in the same situation. And we spoke off camera about mental health. Having a community is the most important thing. In one of the groups I'm part of, the other day I texted, I'm not making any time for myself at the moment. Has anyone got any suggestions for things that they do? And 7 different people gave me tips, and I'm like, wow, like I should write a blog about these things because we need to know them. Building that community around you. And I'm always happy to have that conversation because I think I'm part of like maybe 15 or 16 different WhatsApp groups that support entrepreneurs and, you know, part of lots of different offline communities because I recognise just how important it is for my growth. So
it is. That's incredible. There's so many things that you said in there that I don't even know where to start. I mean, one of the other things that you talk about is, people underestimate the community aspect, but from a founder's perspective, I think it's really important for somebody to sort of be proactive in a sense that you need to, like, even if you have the best idea of the best product, no one's going to beat a path to your door. You have to reach out to people and be a part of a community. So I think your advice in terms of getting people to actually, join a community, be part of a community, is really important because it really helps you kind of, with issues that you face along the way. The other thing I wanted to ask you about is, which leads nicely into, the mental health question is like, it's really stressful, right? Starting a company, a business, balancing life, full-time job. How do you manage your mental health? How do you manage, like, what do you do to let your hair down, so to speak,
Yeah, so I mean, I'll be really frank on this one because I think there is also a tendency when we're talking about mental health to feel like we have the answers, and particularly someone like me who coaches people, I think sometimes I kind of preach a lot of things that I might not be practicing myself, and it's always important to drink your medicine first. So, I have had a really long journey in terms of actually managing my mental health since I started working on the business. It is a full-time endeavour, and so working full-time has been so stressful, and there have been times where I've really had to take a step back from everything and think, it will not crumble down if I just stop doing this right now. So what I would say is that, again, it comes back to what I said about having community, having those people around you who are just saying, you're burning yourself out, take a step back. My husband is fantastic at making sure that I don't work too much, at actually telling me off if I'm working past a certain time. So having that support system is really important. It doesn't have to be a husband, but it could be a best friend, it could be family members. I also find that blocking out very specific periods of time has been really helpful. So I'm the kind of person where as soon as I've got 2 hours free, I can't just watch something. I kind of like something else I'm doing and I get really restless. So if I'm doing an activity that requires me to be fully engaged with it, whether that is, going for a walk, whether it's kind of spending time with family, I will have to do it and I won't move it. So those are some of the ways that I've found are helpful, but I am on a long journey, and it's so important that we talk about not having perfect mental health and kind of just finding ways to get through it.
Amazing, cool. Have you guys raised money? How are you funding the organization? If it's something you want to talk about.
So how are we funded? So it's been a really interesting journey on funding as well, because at the beginning, our mindset was that we were going to find corporates who just got it. They just got it, and they were willing to just support what we did. And that was difficult at first. And I think when we were still really defining what the value proposition was, it wasn't always easy to sell because we didn't really fully know what it was. So we were funded initially entirely by sponsorships from organisations.
Okay.
So we have around 3 sponsors per event,
Yeah.
and they give amounts ranging from £1,000 to £4,500.
Amazing. But you had to sell them this vision, right? You had to sell
Absolutely. I've become a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson naturally, but I've become a
this.
salesperson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're funded partly through corporate and sort of organisations who sponsor our programs. We also deliver training to organisations, so to companies and to universities at the moment.
Yeah.
And that, you know, keeps the lights on. What else? We earn income through ticket sales as well.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Cool, amazing.
So in terms of kind of grant funding and investor funding, we are not there yet in terms of grant funding. And we're not looking for investor funding. So, yeah, that's kind of.
But that's great. I mean, I know so many community organizations that are trying to do what you do, but they haven't made as much progress in the sense in the funding sense of things. So you spoke a bit about sales, right? You said you've literally become a saleswoman, which you have to become in the beginning when you're creating something, because you have to sell this vision to board members, to team members, to organizations that are going to fund you. How did you learn these sales skills, basically?
Yeah, so how did I learn those sales skills? So I am naturally quite an introverted person. Growing up, I was the kind of kid who just held on to their parents at parties. Like, I don't really like putting myself out there.
Yeah.
But what happened when I started working on Foundervine was that I realised that we had a brilliant product, and the only way we were going to get it out there was if we became poster children for this initiative. So I made one of my goals to do more public speaking, and I just dove in right at the deep end, because my first major public talk was a TEDx talk.
Are you kidding me? Lord massive. What was the theme? What did you talk about?
Yeah, so I talked about the how the future of entrepreneurship will be in Africa.
Which was this TEDx Houston?
TEDx KPMG.
Oh, KPMG. Oh, wow, amazing.
Yeah. So it was a really interesting audience of really senior external guests, partners from the firm. It was very surreal, and what they did basically was have lots of brilliant external speakers, and then they offered 2 places as part of a competition for employees who had interesting ideas. So I got through 2 rounds and was successful.
Amazing.
So that was my first kind of big public speaking gig. And so afterwards, everything was just a little bit easier. So I became more comfortable selling the vision behind what I'm doing.
Good.
And so when it came to talking to organisations, I started where I was most comfortable. So most comfortable with corporates. And so KPMG hosted our first event. It was, it's easier getting into them. And then, EY hosted our second event. And consultancies were that bit easier. PwC hosted our 4th event. And since then, I found that just having those conversations, reaching out to people has just become that bit easier. And again, it comes back to actually understanding that value proposition. So learning how to speak their language as well.
Yes.
And it's helpful that I spent time in a firm. But what I would also say is that I don't do most of my engagement with companies or like sales kind of engagement offline. I still struggle with like big events. They're quite tiring and anxiety building for me. So most of my engagement is done on social media. LinkedIn has become an absolute holy grail of engagement for me. What I've learned is that slide
into people's DMs
with
a note.
I will slide in. I will set up a house. I will buy furniture. Because when it comes to social media, you have the opportunity to kind of invent a kind of image of myself. And I don't know if you follow me on LinkedIn.
I do, of
I
course.
post quite regularly. And it's really important to me that not only am I engaging people kind of on a one-to-one level, I'm actually sharing what we're doing with the community and building that audience. And I find that engagement on LinkedIn has just been brilliant, and it's been such a supportive community. I found that like my, my what do you call them, sort of contact lists on LinkedIn grew from 500 to like 3,500 in maybe a year.
Wow.
Because of just like engagement and people reaching out to me as opposed to me having to do some of that grunt work. So I think posting content and being engaging interested and interesting is a great way to build that. And so we're having conversations with at the C-suite level, which as a junior at KPMG, it wouldn't have even been a thing that I thought of. And that's just come from having a really solid brand that people are starting to recognise and believe in. And also having really slick comms. Like I do everything. Well, I did at the beginning. So built the website myself, all of our pitch decks. I built like all of our comms and the sort of branding and the logo, just making sure everything was super slick, and we're so broke we don't pay external people to do it. And now we started being able to, I kind of like don't like it, so we kind of try to keep as much as we can in-house and just make sure it's as good as possible. We had somebody that went through your program, Mansata Kirang, and she was on the show, and of course, like, in fact, her episode, someone sent me an email saying, hey, did you know you were in this newsletter? I didn't even know that was, but the newsletter you guys, so everything looks so slick, and in fact, that is the most watched episode from your newsletter, because it was sent out to members of your community, and it's a really engaging community, so you can tell when someone comes here on the show and they're part of a community, you know, it's much more engaging in that sense. Brilliant. Cool. So, right, okay, I think one of the things I wanted to ask you about, so where do you see Foundervine 3 to 5 years from now? Yeah, so Startup 54, as a brand, we want to take global. So we are starting in the UK, but that's just the beginning. I'm actually moving to Ghana towards the end of this year to launch our programs there. We want to be in 4 African countries in 2020, and we also want to be in sort of 4 to 6 places in the UK in 2020. And long term, we want to educate educators to run local versions of Startup 54 on their campuses and in their organisations. So we see Startup 54 as a brand, a model that we can franchise globally. And we also want to provide a strong foundation for the alumni that come through our Startup 54 programme. So we are exploring what post-programme support looks like, whether that is a bespoke and tailored incubation programme, whether that involves access to investors and kind of who those are. We're thinking through that second stage of the model. But our sort of really core kind of strategy at the moment is just scaling that initial model and building up the operation so that it can run without us.
That's fantastic. Cool. So this is the part of the show where I ask a little bit about you in terms of what, you know, how you get on with things. Do you have a piece of tech that you can't live without, or you use each and every single day without fail? Like that piece of tech?
Canva.
Canva
is my girlfriend, my best friend, bae. Like, I love Canva.
For those that do not know what Canva is, can you quickly describe?
So Canva is a free online tool that helps you build amazing graphics.
They're not paying us money for sponsorship.
They're not. That help you build amazing content, and they have sort of ready-made templates that for those of us who are not naturally born graphic designers means that we can achieve a lot with very little.
Amazing. Canva.com, great tool. You can use it to design anything, a CV, poster, cover photo, whatever. It's really good. Exactly. It's great. What book have you read that has had the most impact on you today?
Okay, so I'm currently reading Americano by Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie. And it's had a really big impact on me because it explores the immigrant experience in the UK and in the US, and the nuances of being a foreigner in a Western country, what it's like to then go back home and try and make a difference there. So I'm in a kind of place now where I think the diaspora is incredibly important to changing outcomes and improving economic growth across the continent. And my TEDx talk actually focused on these three players who I argued held the keys to Africa's development. And those were the globalists, so people who were born outside of the continent but who were really passionate about helping the world grow. You had your repats or your returnees, who were people who had either been born or educated outside of the continent, but who were keen to go back and make a difference, and brought quite a unique perspective of knowing what it was like there and back home. And then you've got your Afropreneur, so your hustler who's on the ground, who's innovating despite not having those the infrastructure to build and the support system. And together, those three communities need to be connected. And Foundervine has always been a model to bring those communities together.
Amazing. Wow.
So Startup 54 is a model that helps us at that early stage. And through it, we're building a really strong advisory network, a really strong bank of corporates who long-term we want to send their employees to work with our entrepreneurs in Africa. We're building a network of people in organizations who are innovating, and when you bring them together, there's so much that we can do. So so in terms of like how Americana kind of is helping my thinking, I think the most important thing is it's just showing me that being in the UK, for those of us who are of African descent, is fantastic, and we need to do as much as we can to learn and to discover, but we should always have our head turned back a little bit.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I was born in Uganda, so like Uganda is supposed to be apparently the most entrepreneurial country in the world, apparently, according to a study done by Virgin. But there's so many entrepreneurs down there, and the population is really young as well. I think about 80% of it is below like the age of 30. So, there's huge opportunities. Cool. So I mentioned to you before, I do this thing called Simon Says, 1 minute of motivation, inspiration, and encouragement to encourage anybody, right? So if you had to encourage somebody, or even yourself, like what would you say? What's that one motivational quote or phrase, or what is your hype, phrase? How do you hype somebody up? What do you normally say to somebody or to yourself?
So what do I normally say to people? It depends who I'm talking to, but I think because I'm always talking to lots of young people who want to start businesses but argue that they do not have the funding that they need to grow, and that's often the barrier in their head. What I say is that you should start with nothing. Start with an idea, start with a notepad and a pen, start with a call to your friend, start with an event you attend. Just start. Whatever you do, just start.
Fantastic. I love that. And the thing is, everyone is always waiting for the perfect time, the perfect, horoscope, the perfect. There's no such thing as a perfect time. You just get started where you are, as they say, with what you have, do what you can, just get off the ground, because eventually, like you said, right, you have to do the 90% for the support, to meet you the 10%, So if you don't start, you get stuck. Look, it's been amazing chatting to you. I mean, we could go on for ages. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about. But one thing I love about what you're doing is you're giving back to community. You're building community. You're facilitating entrepreneurship from the ground up, at the proper grassroots level. And, it's just something that's not being done. You would think there would be a lot more people doing it, but actually the model you're building is really incredible. And again, I've had people who have come through your program, and they speak really highly of your program, and I just thought, hear it from the horse's mouth, as they say, find out more about you. So thank you so much for being on the show. I wish you all the best, and of course, if there's anything coming up you would like to, as our modest audience kind of grows, more than happy to have you on. We would also at one point want to perhaps come over, check out some of your workshops, or maybe when you run the next one. Izzy, thank you so much for coming on the show. And
thank you for having me.